Studies this year. You guys are going to learn all about rubber ducks. It's going to be great. And it's going to be from the illustrious Jeffrey Alexander Martin. He's a writer at jeffthinks.com, a visiting lecturer at the Sparta Institute for Muggle Studies, assistant professor at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and there he specializes in Muggle studies. And finally, he is a former professor at Ilvermorny of Muggle Studies as well. I'd like to introduce again Jeffrey Alexander Martin.
Thank you very much, David. This is Mug 207, Muggles in Real Life. Now, my first encounter with the mystery of the rubber duck was at an event somewhat similar to this, where we were all able to get together and they had a small display of Muggle items, detailing what those Muggle items did. Now, as we looked through, there were a bunch of odd things to do with cars and different types of knickknacks, and I was interested in a lot of them. And then I came across the very last one, and it was this rubber duck. And it didn't have an answer. It said it was still currently being researched by a man named Arthur Weasley, who was working on it at that time. Now that stuck in my mind just a little bit, and a number of years later, I was going to Hogwarts myself, and decided to try to look up if Arthur Weasley had ever published any research on these rubber ducks. Now, as it turns out, there was no research that I could find in the normal section. But there was the secret section, the secluded section, and I heard that there was a paper on rubber ducks in there by Arthur Weasley. So, late one night, I was able to talk one of my friends into causing a little bit of a distraction by releasing a pixie in one part of the school. As everyone was dealing with that pixie, I slipped into the library, into the restricted section. Now in there, I was able to find everything published by Arthur Weasley and his research on Muggles. There was one small article that he had done on the rubber duck. Now, he had researched this for years, tried to study Muggles, but he really struggled with it. The only real conclusion he came to was that rubber ducks were highly associated with Muggle children. So, I thought about that, and I decided to have a little bit of my own adventure to look into this more. And what I realized is that rubber ducks are not only used by Muggles, but rubber ducks are made by Muggles. So, somewhere, they make these things. And I decided to find that place because where better to figure out what the purpose of a rubber duck is. Now, a factory is not necessarily a good place to sneak into at night, but it's the only real way to determine where these rubber ducks are coming from and what the purpose of them is. And this is the first time that I had the opportunity to touch a rubber duck. Now, who here has seen a rubber duck? Yes? Excellent, excellent. I have a few rubber ducks here, just as examples. Would anyone like to catch a rubber duck? Anyone want to run up here? Form a line. We'll catch. There, that's good, that's good. All right. We have medium-sized rubber duck. Hands up, everyone ready?
Over their heads.
All right. No intense fighting, all friendly fighting. Slightly smaller than medium-sized rubber duck. Tiny little rubber duck. They do squeak, they do squeak. Other tiny little baby rubber duck. Good catch. All right. Large little duck. All right, and finally, we have the gigantic duck. Now this is the duck that most Muggles prefer when they play with rubber ducks. If everyone will gather this into the middle, gather into the center, tighten up. All right, here we go. Everyone ready? All right. Now, this is how muggles would end up in what we call duels, which we did go over earlier. And we did put the weapons away, luckily, so that we wouldn't have to resolve it in that way. Eventually, someone will need to eat, and then they'll let go. Now, what we ended up needing to do for the research on the rubber ducks is to capture muggles and then study them with rubber ducks. But obviously, you can't capture muggles, right? That's against the rules. Some of us have made bad decisions when we were younger, obviously, but not a good thing, all right? We're supposed to be nice to muggles. So what we have to do is voluntarily capture them. Now, the best way to do this is through coupons, all right? So we put out coupons in magazines. They would come into a store, and then we would say that after a certain time of playing with the rubber ducks, they would be allowed to take them. Now, as the rubber ducks were played with, we were actually studying the muggles before we would give them to them. And we found a couple of different ways that they use them. One of the ways that muggles like to use rubber ducks, one of the purposes, is humor. All right? The muggles, they tend to play with these rubber ducks. They have them. They laugh often. For some reason, they find the rubber ducks very humorous. We're not sure exactly why. Which falls under the general category of entertainment. All right? They overall are a very entertaining feature. They make noise. People like to look at them. Definitely an entertainment device. They also are used for training in animal interaction. Now, oftentimes, muggles struggle with animal interactions. They're a little too rough with an animal. They're a little too forward. Sometimes they approach an animal. They scare it a little bit. So the rubber duck is a training device right from the earliest ages for muggles to show them how they can and cannot approach and interact with animals. Very interesting, kind of an ingenious idea, really. They're also sometimes used for water transportation. This seems one of the rare uses for the rubber duck. But the squeaking device is also an opening that allows muggle children to soak up water sometimes, take it to a different location, and then squirt it out. We haven't figured out why they're transporting the water yet, but they definitely use it to transport water. It is also used by the parents as a distraction. Now, when the parents want the muggle children to not pay attention to something, they oftentimes hand or even throw a rubber duck in their direction. There are a few things that we're uncertain about. For instance, the rubber duck's relation with hunting decoys. They seem to just be larger rubber ducks, but there is definitely some debate on that still going on. So we'll need to find that out later. There's also some debate about the relationship to the rubber chicken. All right, now the rubber duck obviously has many uses, but the rubber chicken seems to have fewer uses. You encounter it less when you're interacting with muggles, but they seem to enjoy it almost as much when they do encounter it. So that relationship between the rubber duck and the rubber chicken is very confusing at this time. And last, but maybe the most important, the muggles use it as a play toy as life preparation. Right? Because play is designed to prepare us for things we're going to encounter in the future. Now, a rubber duck is mostly an encounter with something that's not scary and doesn't move, but it still seems to fall under that category. Now, I would like to propose that other than the rubber ducks that we have here today that were given out as demonstrations, there is the possibility that you are going to encounter rubber ducks out there in the wild in some way when you're interacting with muggles. And when you do that, I want you to notice how they interact with them, why they interact with them, and what the purpose of them really is, and maybe we can add to our list. So, I would like to know, do we have any questions about the rubber duck? Any questions? Rubber duck questions? Yes, you. Why do rubber ducks squeak? That seems to have a couple of important points. So one of them is entertainment, right? People love, or especially muggle babies, love squeaking things. So that little squeaking sound seems to be part of the entertainment value. It also seems to be part of the use for the parents to distract, right? When you're looking this way and then you hear squeak over this way, you look this way, right? It's very distracting, so that's important. And possibly as an encounter with fear, right? Sometimes things that make noise kind of scare us a little bit. And maybe the squeaking is so that we can approach things that make noise so we'd be less afraid. So we definitely are looking into that even more. Any other questions? Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Say it again.
He wants to know why people like to take baths with rubber ducks.
Yeah. So Christopher would like to know why people take baths with rubber ducks. And it seems to be that it's their natural environment. Since they float, they don't get messy as far as water goes. And then that's the only location that it really makes sense to use them as a water transportation device. Right? And it's a very dangerous location for muggles. They seem to have a lot of encounters with slipping in tubs, so they train them to be better under distractions at that moment, and it seems to be training for that. Any other questions? Excellent. So the homework is to pay attention the next time that you encounter muggles using rubber ducks. See how they're using them. See if you can add to the list, so that we can advance our knowledge about these muggles. Oh, do we have one last question? Oh, why are they made? Yeah. So why are rubber ducks made? And that seems to be that it has these uses, but it's possible that they were originally made as a money-making scheme. Now, someone had an immense amount of rubber left over that they weren't using for other uses like tires and such, and they said, how can we use this rubber to make more money? And they decided, hey, why don't we make rubber ducks, and then the muggles can use them for all of these different things. So kind of a genius solution. Excellent. So remember your homework. Everyone so far has gotten an A-. A-. It's a pretty good score. I hope you're all feeling very good about that. Thank you.